Barbara and John Browne, when you met him.
You're gonna make her, but
Yeah,
she's
because
telling a
I
story.
never. No, she could go ahead. Go, Mom.
Okay, I came back into nurses training on September 1st.
Of what year? You were 21.
I just turned 21.
So something 53? No,
Yeah, sounds right.
or 52.
No, because I only had 2 years left in training.
Okay.
Okay.
And he was a year ahead of you, or you were a
You're
year
behind me.
He was a year behind you.
Okay. So anyway, I came and said I was really gonna get really good grades when I came back and learn, because my one supervisor had faith in me and said, yes, you can come back and you can save the whole year. What I did was I wanted to stay in San Diego. I had gone to school there for a year. And so I went to the county in San Diego and said, I'd like to come into your nursing program. I've had a year at Orange County at the hospital, and all the county hospitals were the same. And so she looked through my records and everything and says, you can come in. I said, okay, so I'll come in as a junior. She says, no, you will start over. Number one, you have lost your year.
Oh.
And it it upset me very much.
Say whatever you want. Be honest.
It
Pissed you
upset
off.
me that she wanted me to do that whole lousy year, which is the worst.
So you had already done a year where?
At Orange County Hospital.
And this was the next year, or was this a couple years later?
I took a year off and
Right,
went to San
okay.
Diego State.
Got it.
So anyway, I was really upset. So I just took a chance and went back to Orange County and made an appointment to see the director. And I walked in and I said, she was a little teeny, but her name was Miss Bazell. She was about 4'9" or 10. And somehow she really liked me because she was always getting me out of problems and trouble. So she says, oh, where have you been? And I said, well, I went to college when I left here and blah, blah, blah. And she opens the record book that they have of where you've been and everything you've done. And she says, oh, you left on the 2nd of September. Started out first. At that time, you had to put in 1,065 hours working in the county hospital. So she said, oh, good, you went one day over a year being in the program.
Oh, so you got the whole year.
And so I got the whole year, which was a blessing, believe me, to you. So she said, you lost one day, and I'm really glad to see you. And when can you start? I said, tomorrow.
Can I ask you a question? What did you do your first year out of high school?
I went to school with Aunt Joni, Harbor Junior College.
Okay.
Second year at the college.
So you
in
lived at
Liverpool.
home? Did you live at home?
Oh,
then?
yeah.
Okay, and then you went to nurses training for a year,
Yeah.
and then you went to San Diego State for a year.
Yeah.
And then you decided to go back into nurses training, and you got that 1 year. Okay,
Yeah.
and you
So-
went to Orange County? You were in
Orange County Hospital, yeah.
And that's where the first year was, when you were 19.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So I went back at 21.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was very happy about it, and I started within a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really dedicated to myself, and this time I was going to get good grades and not be put on probation, because I was on probation for a while. Anyway, I went back and I went to the library to study, because there was no place to study in your room. And the library was half the size of the kitchen. Nobody went to the library. It was dark out in the no man's land at the hospital. So I went in and they had 2 tables, one that you could sit at. One table had rooms for 2 people and the other one had rooms for 5 people or something. So no one ever went there. I went there and I took my books and I took my tablets, and I'm going to study and I'm going to be a really good girl, not to get in trouble or anything. So I was sitting there and it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and in through the door comes this man. He's nice looking, he looks great, and he says, "Hi, my name's John Browne, what's yours?" And I just looked up at him, and I said, "I'm studying." And he said, "But," I said, "what's your name?" "My name's Barbara." Puts his hand across and takes my hand and says, "I'm glad to meet you." And I said, "Thank you." He says, "Well, I've come here to ask you a question." And I said, "What?" "I'm studying. I've got to study." And he says, "What are you studying?" So I told him what I was studying. And he says, "Well, I have a really big favor to ask you." He said, "I'm a freshman here. I just started a week ago to be a student and be an RN." And he said, "Anyway, my friend here, his name is so-and-so, is then out in the car, and one of your friends who lives in the nurse's dorm, she's with him. And the person that was supposed to be my blind date, because I didn't know anybody over there, and she wasn't there when I went to pick her up." And I just looked at him. I said, "So what do you want from me?" He said, "Well, my buddy has been wanting to take this girl out, and she's in the car, and she said absolutely she will not go unless you get somebody else to come with us." I said, "I'm studying," and I tried to enter. He grabbed my books off of my desk, took his other hand, and says, "Come on, we'll just go for a short time." And he pulled me up, and I'm looking like I haven't never met anybody like this in my life. Who does he think he is? You know, he's got my books, he's got my hand, and he's pulling me out the door. So I said, "Okay, but I'm taking my books with me because where are we going?" "I will stay." He said, "We're just going out to the orange grove and dance." That's what people did there. They had a dirt road that went to the middle of the orange grove, because remember, this was orange grove country, you know. And it takes about a half hour to do this, to find the right way to get in. And I have to tell you about the orange grove. In the middle is like a bare piece of land that all these young men that live in the area have mowed. So we get over there, and I said, "Where are we going?" "Oh, just out to the orange grove." I could not believe this. Anyway, we get there, and there's a big space that guys who have been going there for God knows how long, raking it up. He says, "We come out here and we dance." So now I've met the girl and I met the guy. I sit down and I said, "I'm not going out there to dance. You told me all I had to do is come with you. I've got my books, turn the light on in the car, I'm in the back seat, and I'm going to study." So I picked up my books and I started to study. This went on for about 5 minutes, and he grabbed the books out of my hand. So anyway, he asked me where I've been for the past year and everything. And he says, "I'm going to sing you a song." I never had anyone sing me a song. So he sang me a very nice little song. And I just thought, this is a different person I've ever met in my life. So I said, "Oh, well, if you can sing a song, I can sing a song." It was a naughty song that the fraternity, they had a nice song that the girl of my dreams has met me in. They always sing it at all the meetings. And it was very nice. And
What do you mean it was dirty?
It was, what he sang me was very nice.
Okay.
I will sing you the song now that I sang to him.
Okay.
It was with the words that we had translated when I was at college. "The girl of my dreams has dyed her hair. She's dyed it a purple green. She smokes and drinks, and she tells dirty jokes, and she hasn't a brain in her head. She thinks White Rock makes the world go round, and she can drink more than you or me, but the girl of my dreams is a blank, da-da-da, and the sweetheart of 6 other guys.
You sang that to him?
Yes. He looked at me and thought, oh my God, who is this person? Because I went with fraternity boys, and that's, we sit behind their back all the time. And so he just looked at me as if I was out of my head. And I said, now I'm getting back to reading. He says, you know, I've never met anybody like you. I said, I've never met anybody like you either, you know. So he said, let's get out and dance. And then he dragged me out of the car, and they put on the music and go dancing in the orange grove. And I told him I lived in the dorm, and they locked the dorm at 10 o'clock at night. It's now 9:30. I said, if you don't get me back, then I can't leave the dorm for a week. And the other girl, whoever she was, I can't remember, said, you've got to get us back. So they drove hell out of nowhere and got us back, and he said, thank you. So the next day, I got a call from my dad, and he said,
Did he get you back in time?
oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, oh yeah, everybody always runs before the door's locked, and you can't get in the dorm.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back in. The next day, my dad calls me up and says, I want you to do me a favor. He said, my very best friend has a son who's in the Navy and is an officer, and he is in San Diego, but he has the weekend off, you know, and he's on his ship going someplace, I don't know, and he really would like to meet a Jewish girl and take her out tonight. Will you go with her? And I told him, yes, you would. And I said, okay, it's fine with me. I'll go with him. It's one night, it's a big deal. And so,
Would you remember which friend of Grandpa was?
no.
Oh.
And so the next night, all of a sudden, I'm in my room all dressed up, because I did have really neat clothes, and dress and hair fixed and everything. And my girlfriend came out and said, your date's there. And I said, what does he look like? She said, great. I said, okay. So I walk out, and this guy is a full lieutenant. He's only a year older than I am, you know. So he's on the way to Japan or someplace, all dressed up in his uniform. Look, and he said, okay, is there a place around here where we could dance or listen to music? I said, yes. We all go down to this one place. So it was a really nice place, and we were sitting there having a drink, you know, and learning about each other for about probably 20 minutes. The next thing is this person comes over to my table and said, hi, my name's John Browne. I've met you, but I forget your name.
This is the next night?
The next night. He says, but I forget your name. And I just went like this. Oh my God.
Did he kiss you on your first night?
I'm sure he did. So anyway, I go like this. I'm so embarrassed, you know. And then he shakes my date's hand and says, I'm really glad to meet you. And I think, you have a good time. You know, the band's really great. And goodbye. So we just round the guys and everything. So I was so embarrassed. I was terrible. Never saw that guy again. He shipped out, I think, the next day. So then I'm thinking, thank goodness, just get this guy off of me. Just wherever I am, he finds me, you know. So the next day he sees me in the classroom, and I find out I have a class with him. A class with him. So
and you're a year ahead of him.
Yeah, but the classes, you could have all 3 years in the same class.
Yeah.
You know, you have to take certain things like CD and all this. So he sits down and he says, oh, excuse me, and he takes the chair. I'm on the end.
When is this? The next year?
The next day.
Next day. Yeah, so the next day, he picks up a chair. I came in and sat in the front. I'm going to try to learn, right? You know, I sit in the front row of the class, and he picks up a chair and puts it next to me and says, "Oh, I'm glad to see you here." I mean, it was crazy. And he starts talking, and I'm trying to listen. Finally, the teacher says, "Mr. Browne, will you please stop talking to Miss Cohn? This is classroom lesson." She was an old lady, really old. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I'm really sorry. Okay, I'll talk to you after class." I mean, he was just obnoxious. Obnoxious. So it just went on like that for every week. 2 to 3 times a week, he would appear in the dorm and said, "I'm here to see Barbara." And I'd say, "Come on," you know, jeez. And so we would either walk, and then we had no money, and I really cannot remember. But he said, "What we need to do," it was October, I remember, because isn't that Halloween?
Yeah.
So it was Halloween, and so I'd seen him 4 or 5 times probably in that time. And so he said, "Let's go together to the Halloween party." Needless to know, I didn't know that the whole faculty came to the Halloween party. Had no idea. And they were very strict. Very, very strict. So anyway, I said, "Well, I don't know what to wear to the Halloween party." "Well, come over to my mother's house, you know, and we've got a lot of costumes and everything, and I'll fix you up." He said, "Do you have a strapless bra?" And I said, "Of course, you know, because that's what was a big thing." And I'm thinking, what is this going on here? This is going from nutty. Go over to his mother's house. His mother wasn't there. And he goes and he finds a big piece of material, which was Hawaiian material. So he said, "Okay," he says, "I'm going to put it on you." But he said, "Just take your blouse off and your skirt." And his brothers were there. And I said, "What?" He said, "I have to wrap you up in this sarong." So he takes the sarong and he pins it to my bra. His brothers are watching and everything. And he wraps it around, so now I'm wearing a sarong from my bra to 5 inches above my knee. And he said, "You look great." He said, you know, his brother said, "Yeah, you look really wonderful." So we go to the Halloween dance and everybody's dressed up. But nobody's dressed up like Barbara. Everybody has costumes on. But the worst part of it was sitting along the whole wall of where we were going to this Halloween dance was all the faculty. And you should see, I can remember how they were dressed. Not in costume, believe me. So he says, "Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do some things, you know." So we're jitterbugging, because he loved to jitterbug, but he called it different names. The way you did different dances, they all had different names. So he's twirling me around, and all of a sudden, he grabs me around the waist. He throws me on his right shoulder up, you know, like jumping up on your shoulder. And he rolls me around to my other shoulder on my back, at which time my sarong fell down. And I got looks like you could imagine, and I can't remember what the rest we did. The next day, I get called into the director of nurses. And I was chewed out for my actions at the Halloween party. That is not what we do at this hospital, you know. And so I'm going to have to forbid you to go out on your days off. You have to stay in the dorm. So I am back into the dorm, and on my days off, I have to stay in the dorm. and study. That was it. So that was the first section, which at other time I'll tell you what went on from then.
Go, keep going.
Wow.
No, I can't tell you.
That can be a movie. It should be a movie.
What do you mean, what else happened?
But what was really funny was that one time we were in this house or something. We moved here, and I don't know, we brought up something about that. And he said, you know, the first time I met you, I knew I wanted to marry you. I said, what? You're telling me we've been married 30 years and you're telling me this? He said, yeah, I couldn't understand how I could ever get you to go out with me. He said, you were so high class.
Wow.
He waited until, I don't know, we moved to this house and we were the only ones living here, which was unusual. You know, everybody lived with us. Oh my God.
Wow. That's a story.
I have a
That's great.
story written about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, so that's just the beginning. You're not going to tell me all the rest right now?
Oh, no.
No.
No, we need to hear
We need to hear about that. We have to hear about, like, you know, the first time you were going to get married, and then you went away, and then he came and got
Well,
you.
I'll tell you how I met his mother.
Okay.
Well, you didn't meet his mother when you went to the house because she wasn't there.
No, she wasn't there.
I see.
Okay.
Oh, when you did the sarong,
Yeah, yeah. So, but his brothers were all there.
Were they all living there?
Yeah. And, well, they just got out of service. They had all been in service, all three of them, or whatever they're for. I can't remember. So the next thing is, I couldn't get in the dorm like a month later. They locked the doors, you know, so I couldn't get in. He said, "That's okay. We'll go and you can stay at my mom's house," you know. And I don't know whether he said she was there or not. I have no idea. So I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, this is my bedroom. He only had 2 bedrooms or 3 in the whole house. This bedroom was like the little bedroom, but smaller. Okay. So he had like a double bed or single bed in there. I don't know. And so I said, well, we were wearing these skirts that had, what do you call those, buffoon?
Chiffon?
No, they're like when we used to go square dancing, that you wore several skirts.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
hoop skirts?
Hoop skirts or something. So I said, I can't lay down in the bed with this hoop skirt over my head. He says, that's okay. Take your hoop skirt and put it on the chair, you know, and that's it, get in the bed. I said, well, you can't get in the bed with me. He says, no, I'm not going to, got my clothes, and I'm going to sleep on the other side of you on top of the covers. So I thought, okay, that's looks right. I got my dancing clothes on, but I took off the hoop skirt because that was mammoth. So morning comes, and the door opens up to his bedroom, and says, "Oh, I'm sorry," and closes the door.
Oh, no.
It was his mother.
Oh, God.
It was his mother.
Oh, God.
I'm under the covers with my hoop skirt sitting on the chair, and he's laying on the bed. And he says, "Not what it looks like, Mom." So anyway, I got dressed and everything, and I said, and she said, "That's all right. I saw that he was on this. It's okay." Oh, jeez. The next time I came to his house to sleep over, his mother said, "Come right in, Barbara. You're sleeping with me from now on."
So you slept in her bed?
I slept with her in her bed until I got married.
That's great.
Well, that's good.
Which was 4 years.
I can picture that with Alberta.
Oh, God. And she was, after that, she had just remarried for her 4th time. But he wasn't there. He was staying over at somebody's house. that's another story. Not
okay.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Hmm.
Crazy.
So you went together a couple years before you decided to get married, 2 or 3 years?
Um,
So you graduated from nursing school before him.
a year before.
And then were you working?
Yeah.
When did you graduate from nursing school? How long is it? 3 years?
3 years, yeah. I only had 2 years,
So you were
and
23.
he had 3 years. He went to school 1 year after I did.
So you got done when you were 23.
I suppose so.
And then what'd you do?
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I went to work in Mount Sinai Hospital. It had been open 1 month.
Mm.
Mount Sinai Hospital.
Hmm.
And from there, because I had graduated from a county hospital, I got elevated within 30 days to be the head nurse
Mm.
of the whole ward.
Mm.
Not the ward, of the 3rd floor, whatever it was. I found out, Mary Donovan and I found out. She went to LA County, I went to Orange County. That was probably the best place you could ever get any training.
Hmm.
Because the Catholic hospitals wouldn't let the nurses touch the men. They only treated women in the hospital. BJ never touched a guy to bathe them or shave them or do anything.
Huh.
And Catholic hospitals were all 1 or 2 bedrooms, and the county hospitals were all 6 beds up to 12 beds in 1 room.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it was
wow.
a completely different.
Hmm.
If you graduated at that time, John came in on a different schedule. They changed nursing the year he came in. I worked 3 to 6 weekends my first year back. He never worked a weekend ever.
Hmm.
He had every weekend off.
You worked 3 weekends or 6 weekends? What did you just
Huh?
say? Did you say you worked 3 weekends in a row or 6 weekends in a row?
I worked 6 weekends in the row.
Wow.
And so when I later on when I went with him, he would go to a party, and I always worked evening shift and got off at 11:30 at night in the summer. He would take out somebody in the dorm and take them to the party that they would have on the weekends, and then he would come and find me where I was working. And I said, "Where have you been?" "Well, I went blah blah blah." "Well, who'd you go with?" "Oh, whatever her name. Oh, Evelyn or whatever her name." And I went into the dorm and I said, "I need someone to go to a party with me, and whoever walks out will go with me, and we will go to my friends. And then I'd have to have them back in at 11, and then I would get off."
Mm-hmm.
Well, quite the guy.
God.
Quite the guy you married.
He was a very special nurse. He had been a corpsman, remember?
Right.
Yeah, so he had been a corpsman for 3 years.
So I'm surprised that didn't count toward nursing school.
At that time they did. For free help, they would take anybody. No, I don't mean anybody, but yeah, he was a corpsman.
Hmm.
So then you were both. So you were done at 23, and then he had another year while you were working. He was still going to school.
Yeah.
And then when you were 24, is that when you originally decided to get married? When you were 24?
I don't know.
You don't remember? Because you were going to get married, and then that didn't work out.
Well, I got engaged. We got engaged while I was still in nursing school.
Oh, so you got engaged fairly early. Yeah.
Probably the 2nd year.
Uh-huh.
We went to see the rabbi in Santa Ana,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where we originally would have got married.
So when you decided not to get married, you still stayed together though?
No, I think it was the idea of religion.
Right, but like you were going to get married, and did you actually make plans and have a
Yeah, I
date?
had a ring.
And then when you broke up, did you just not have the wedding, or did you actually break up with him?
No, we kept going together. You just said.
Yeah, you just didn't want to get married. Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
No, number one, you couldn't have got married in school anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, then after you both graduated, so you graduated and then he graduated, and then you were going to get married, and you actually had a date for the second one. Didn't you have a date ever, or you never? Because you said he eventually broke up with you. You broke up.
He broke up with me when I lived in Vegas.
Oh, so not until you moved to Vegas.
Yeah.
And when did you move to Vegas?
A year after I graduated. I worked at Mount Sinai in Beverly Hills for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we broke up for some reason, I don't know what. But I really don't know what. I wanted to, it was just, he just was there all the time wherever I was.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go out with anybody else.
Yeah.
Then I wanted to go into, it was the planes that flew overseas. In the United States, there was only one plane that flew across the ocean, okay? And they flew from LA to Japan, where they flew to Hawaii, and then from there they flew another flight to either Japan or the Philippines, you know.
Yeah.
And you had to be an RN to be a flight attendant.
Yeah.
So that fit me fine when I broke up with him for a while. So I went up to, Pan Am. That was at Pan Am Airlines. And I said, I'd like to see about flying as a stewardess, you know, an RN.
Yeah.
And so they flew me up to San Francisco from LA. And up there they had me walk up the room and back the room and how I walked and how I did this and everything.
So you didn't want to be a nurse, you just wanted to be a stewardess?
You had to be
both?
You had to be an RN to fly.
You mean to be a stewardess you had to be an RN?
Yeah, for Pan Am.
Got it.
Because you're flying from LA to Hawaii.
Right,
You have to have somebody on the plane that knows what the heck they're doing.
Right, yeah.
So I took the test and I got 100% on the test, 4-hour test, you know. And then I did all the parading, and I was sure, 100% sure, I got the job. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not bragging, but I had a good figure. I weighed 112 to 115. I was 5'3" is what they wanted. You had to be 5'3" to 5'5", you know.
Really?
All that stuff. And, you know, they just said on the way out, you'll be getting your notice within 7 days. But, you know, going like this, you know. So I was really eager to get that. And then one day I got a telegram and I was not picked. And I cried like crazy. I couldn't imagine that I didn't get picked. I had good references, you know. And it was within 1 month on the LA Times. I'll never forget this. There was a big article, all RNs that are Jewish have been rejected by Pan Am.
Wow.
It had broke all barriers.
Wow.
And my dad called up and says, go get the Times, because I'm living in LA. And I said, oh, son of a bitches. You know? Really, it was so, it you know, like how they broke the colored barrier is the same way they broke for stewardesses, you know. And so it hit the lines and made me feel better.
Yeah, it wasn't you, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it really felt crappy that I hit all their levels.
So is that when you went to Las Vegas after that? And you were still going with Dad at that time? And then he sent you a letter in May and broke up?
No, no, I got to Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm in Vegas for just about a month, and I found 2 girls to live with, and we live right next. The house we rented was right next to the hospital, like from here to the doorway. So I got a knock on the door, and there's John. And I said, what are you doing here?
Well, were you going out with them still at that time? That's what
No,
I'm saying.
I said, I'm leaving.
So you had breaking it, yeah.
Didn't break up. It was just, my dad says, do something with your life. You're not doing anything. You know, I mean, you're still
Yeah.
going with them. Go away. You know, not go away, but, you know. And they used to come to Las Vegas every 6 weeks, my mom and dad,
Oh, okay.
and my uncle and my aunt.
Yeah.
That was the gambling. I mean, it wasn't like it is now. There was 2 casinos. 2 casinos.
Which ones?
The Sahara and the other one was
Sands? Was the Sands?
Rancho Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just 2.
Huh.
And so,
So it's like in
so
57.
my dad says, come with me. We're going to Vegas. You know, just come with me. Just see what they can offer you. So he wanted to get me away from John, whatever. So I said, okay, I'll go. So I went, and they had 2 hospitals. One hospital I liked better than the other. They immediately offered me a job. And at that time, the hospitals were run by nurses coming and going. The only place that you could get a divorce in the United States of America was you had a year to wait,
Unless you're in Vegas.
unless you're in Vegas. So everybody went to Vegas
Yeah.
and stayed. You had to stay 6 weeks in Vegas to get the divorce.
Oh my gosh, that's
6
a lot.
weeks. You go in, you signed, I'm in, you paid the money. So the nurse, so the 2 hospitals had rotating nurses.
Well,
Continuous.
how do people do that if they had jobs? How could they stay in Vegas for 6 weeks?
You could always get a job as an RN and graduate.
No, but I mean the other people that came to get divorced. The people who came
They
to
came and they got, the hospital was glad the divorce happened. They had nurses coming and going.
No, but I'm saying if you just wanted a divorce and you weren't a nurse.
I did.
No, what about like if John and me wanted to get a divorce? We couldn't just go there and stay
One
in
of you
Vegas.
one of you has to be in Vegas for 6 weeks.
Wow.
As a
Okay, so one
permanent
of the
resident. You have to sign
one of the
a
2
person-
people. Got
You
it.
were a permanent resident if you stayed 6 weeks.
That's a lot because a lot of people had 2 jobs. They couldn't do it.
Well, I guess
Weird.
it was more important
Yeah,
to
they
get
wanted
a
a
divorce than get a job. Only one of you had to be there.
Yeah.
The other 2 people didn't go. So naturally it was easier for a woman to get a divorce. You couldn't
Right,
get,
right.
if you got a divorce in California, it was a year.
Wow.
But go over there 6 weeks, and most of them had boyfriends waiting for them to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
there, right?
Wow. So then what happened?
I asked him what he was doing there.
Mhm.
He said, I came to see you. I said, you came to see me? I thought the whole idea was
When was that? When did he come to see you?
I've been there a month.
What month was that when he came to see you?
October, November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is way before you got married.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you
Oh,
said-
yeah.
Well, 6 months.
So
before.
he says,
They didn't get married till September.
so he said, well, can't I stay here at your house? I said, I have 2 roommates. No, you can't stay here at the house. No, what's wrong with you? So he said, okay, I'll be back. So he goes 2 blocks away and rents a room. $1 a day. $1 a day to rent this room. Men only. And there was just old barracks and they turned them into $1 a day. And then I didn't know it. And I go to work in the emergency room. And then he walks in his white uniform, you know, because he had to wear white pants and the white special shirt they wear. Yeah. And I'm in an emergency. And he walks in. I said, what are you doing? He says, I just got a job here. And so he goes and he gets a room. He rents it for a month, you know, at a time or whatever. And he goes into the hospital. And of course, they're thrilled to see him. You know, he gets a job, walks in, and then he walks up, work in an emergency room, and says, hi. What do you do with somebody like this?
I don't know. I guess you marry him. I guess that's what you did.
Oh God, no.
How long- how
So how long did he stay there?
Oh, he stayed. This is really funny. It's not funny, but Tom and Nancy had just had
Vic?
Vic,
Uh-huh.
and so they were based at Norton Air Force Base, which was 15 miles away from Vegas.
Uh-huh.
So they find out I'm there. So they come and drop off the baby when Joyce and I are home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we moved out of that one place and Joyce and I moved into a duplex, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was so funny. It was just a riot. I would get all these messages from Tommy, what was happening with John.
Wait, so he moved out of Vegas? Or was,
Yeah.
oh, you didn't say that. So
Yeah.
when did he, so he was only in Vegas for a little while?
He stayed there, I think, maybe 2 months, because I remember that he came, I was with him on New Year's Eve, and my parents and my aunt and uncle were in Vegas celebrating New Year's Eve, you know, at the Sahara. And I said, oh, I have to go over and say hi to my parents. My dad just about went through the ceiling. I said,
Okay. You mean because Dad was there?
oh God. So my dad is thinking I got her away from him. We broke the wedding up, you know, it wasn't that far along anyway. And he makes me go to Vegas so I will not see John anymore.
And then he
And
moved
I
there.
go to the hotel I knew they were celebrating at some place and whatever. And I walk in and your dad just walked right up to my dad and puts his hand up. Happy New Year, Mr. Cohn. Oh, God.
So he was still there at New Year's.
No, he had gone home and he came back.
Uh-huh.
He kept going back and forth.
Oh.
And then I thought that finally one time I thought, okay, this time something happened. He's gone. Right?
Mhm.
I get a knock on the door and it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I gotta be to work at 3. And there's John at my door knocking. And with him, his best friend.
Mhm.
What are you doing here? Well, we really just came up to see you. But what happened on the way when we got to Baker's, you know where Baker's, you know, on the way to Vegas?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Baker's 90 miles from Vegas. When we got there, we blew a gasket on the car. So we had no way of staying there. So the guy said it would take a day to fix the car. So we hitchhiked all the way from there to come see you.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, and you got a ride? Yeah, he said, we got a ride all the way to Vegas. And I said, well, I can't see you. I'm going to work, you know. And he said, well, the guy's going to probably try and fix it. So could you drive me back to Baker's right now? They hitchhiked there.
Mhm.
I said, it's not, let's see, it's take me an hour and a half to get you there. I can drive pretty fast though, and then I could barely get back to get the 3 o'clock shift, you know, which I did. They didn't have the money to fix the car. They did not have the money to pay the guy, so they lost the car.
Oh God. You mean you drove there for nothing?
Yeah, I got to see me.
God.
So then they hitchhiked all the way back to Anaheim.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy things.
So that happened like in the winter time, and then when did he come back again? And when did you finally get together again for?
Well, Tom and Nancy moved there. I think it was in January or February. They were at the Air Force Base, and they had Vic. And so he came to Vegas, and he stayed there a couple weeks with his brother,
Mm-hmm.
with Tommy.
Yeah.
Tommy and Nancy,
Mm-hmm.
and they were over at my house. Well, I
Yeah.
saw him every day
Yeah.
when I wasn't working, but I said, you know, you can't stay here because I'm living with Joyce,
Yeah.
and that's just a rule.
Yeah.
When you live with somebody else, that's the
No.
rule.
Yeah.
And besides,
Yeah.
that's all I need to do is if I had John there, my dad had walked into my house.
Right,
and,
yeah.
It was bad enough. He was at the casino.
Yeah, I know.
God, my father just, he did everything he could. Everything. When I said that we were going to go to Miami, great. He would pay for the whole trip, I swear.
So when were you going to go to Miami? When
I
is
never
it?
got to Miami.
Yeah, but when is it you were planning the trip to Miami?
Oh, well, the last big thing was that I would not go and marry John at the church in Vegas.
Oh, so he asked you to get married.
Again, yeah.
When was that?
That was, he was there in May,
Okay.
and he said, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I said, number one, I'm Jewish, you're not, and I said, my kids have to be raised Jewish, and you were head of the Christian fellowship in college, you know, and I don't expect you to do that, but I have to have my child raised, you know, and they can't go to church, you know, it's strictly, I can't have you at the age of, when they're 6 or 7, come on, you're going to be a Christian now, you know, which his mother thought she could do, which she didn't, but she tried. And so he left me in a huff and a puff, and he wrote me a Dear John letter, you know what Dear John letter is. And it was like 6-7 pages long, you know, and that he's a free spirit and he wants to be like his Uncle Si and his Uncle Clyde that roam from place to place, and they're half Indian and he knows that he can be half Indian too, and it just went on and on, you know, and then it was pages. So goodbye forever. This letter I never thought. I sat, and a guy took me out that night I had a date with, and we went from dinner into a bar to listen to music, and tears keep rolling down my eyes. I'm not bawling, but I'm just, you know, going like this. And finally, it's, God, Barbara, what are you doing? And all the guys I went out with knew John. Anyway, so I said, well, he wrote me this letter, and I'm telling the guy I'm with
Oh, God.
all about the letter. And I said, well, I think we better leave now, and I'll take you home because you're not very good company tonight. And I said, but can I drive your Corvette home? He had a brand new Corvette. He said, yeah, I'll let you do that.
Wow.
You know, so I was in seventh heaven, but that stopped my tears coming down my eyes.
So that's when your Corvette envy started, way back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that was in May, and then what happened after that?
Well, Joyce was teed off at her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a doctor. And it was the same thing. He had been married before, and no, he really didn't want to get married, and blah, blah, blah. So that's when we said, you know what? I've got to get rid of John, and you got to get rid of him. And we have to leave, and we have to get out of here so nobody can follow us, right? So what we'll do is we took a map, and we were going to drive all the way the southern route to Miami. It was summertime, you know, I had a great car, I had a brand new car. And so we mapped it out, and then we said, well, I have to go say goodbye to my parents, because they're not going to be flying out to Miami.
And you wanted to go to Miami and then to Cuba?
Yeah. So that was it. You could go to Miami, work for 2 or 3 months, and fly over, you know. And it was cheap there. That's when Castro, you know, not Castro, started with a B. I can't remember his name. And that was the place to be. Vegas was second, that place was number one. So we decided that, and so she said goodbye to her boyfriend, you know. And then she said, you know what, Barbara, I think that we should take a trip and say goodbye to my parents. And they lived in Utah. And then, since we're in Utah, why don't we go to Reno? And then from Reno, let's go to Tahoe and just make the whole tour around, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you can drop all your junk off, and I can drop my stuff off of my parents. So we did. So we figured we'd take this little tour going around, you know, which we did. So I went home and I said goodbye to my parents. You know, I'm not at that time. We went to Reno. We had dates every place we went. Not dates, but good times, you know. Well, we didn't have dates. I mean, we went in Vegas, you know. We had guys that we'd meet, and then we drop on, but we never had anybody just high and by. We had this all mapped out. In fact, we went all the way up to where my brother lived, up in Northern California. He was the head of the hospital. So we went up there and met Joni and him and said goodbye to them. But what had happened was, when I was in Vegas, there was some guys that came into the emergency room, 2 guys that came in, and they were with the government Secret Service. And we met them, you know, and we went out with them that night. And so they said, we're out of San Francisco, so if you ever get by there, call us. So we had, it was part of the government. It wasn't FBI, but something like that. It was some secret agents, and they had the number and everything. Don't lose the number. Anyway, we took this trip before we were going to go to Cuba. We dropped stuff for her mother, and we did everything coming down, my brother, and then we came to San Francisco. We called these guys up. They were so happy. They said, oh, you remembered us? We said, yes. So then we went out with them and to every place we could find in San Francisco, you know. And then we just came down and saw my folks and everything, you know. And then we drove from my folks lived in Long Beach. I said, okay, I want to say goodbye to Alberta, because 4 years I had known her, you know. I said, okay, I'll say goodbye. And I said, and I found out before I got there that Tommy had come down. I had to go pick him up. I dropped off Tommy and Nancy and the baby. And I said, you want to know where John's working? And I said, he's working, really? Where's he working? He's working at Queen of Angels in LA. And he works every single day. He is now into his 35th day of straight working 12 hours. He goes home, he gets in bed, he gets up and he showers and he goes back to LA and works 12 hours a day. He's taking no days off, and he's taking care of I'll never forget this. It was a kid that was 18 who was supposed to clean up the gas station before he left for the night, and he put gasoline on the cement, spark hit, and it burned him from the head to the toe. So John was doing him 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
It was a really bad case, you know. So that's why by the time he got back to Anaheim, he could sleep, eat, and go back, you know. And his mother says, so we stopped, and I walked in and I said, I picked up Tom and Nancy and a whole bit, and I said, okay, I'm leaving. I probably won't see you because we're going to Cuba. Just then, your dear father walks out of the room dressed with a pair of shoes in his hand, socks on, dressed, carrying a pair of shoes. He walks in and says, "Hi, Barbara," from his bedroom. So Tommy had called and told him that I would be picking him up at his mom's house. But John works 12 hours, so I'm not going to see him, right?
So he walked into the house, you mean?
He walked in from his bedroom, which was like...
He was in the bedroom when all this was
when
going
I walked
on?
in. So he hopped up and got dressed and comes walking
Oh.
in as I'm saying goodbye to Alberta. You know, I'm
Mhm.
picking up Tom and all of this crap going on. It says, "Hi, Barbara. I heard you're going to Miami." "Yeah, I am." "So when you coming back?" I said, "I'm not coming back. I'm moving. I'm moving to Miami. And then I'm going to Cuba, Joyce and I." And he says, "Oh." So Tommy said, "Well, Barbara, can Nancy and I stay here just a little bit, you know, before we make the trip back to Vegas, you know?"
Oh, you're about to drive back to
Went
Vegas?
back to Vegas and packed and took everything I didn't want home, you know, and left it at my
Oh, so you were gonna drive them back to Vegas?
No, they were with me. Tom and Nancy were with me. I stopped by to pick them up again. It's always riding. I was always driving on my days off.
Uh-huh.
Tommy never had any money, you know.
Right, but he said, why do you want to wait? Why did he say for you to wait? What do you mean? He said you want to wait before you go back to Vegas. You just...
He wanted to see his mom.
Oh, so that's why you went to go see
Yeah,
your
so
mom.
I went to say goodbye to her. And out he comes with shoes in his hand and sets them down. Says, "So Barbara, I hear that you're going to Miami." Puts his shoe on, and I said, "Yeah, we're going to go to Miami before we go to Cuba. Everything's, you know, all set up. Got everything ready to go. Car's all ready." He says, "Oh." He says, "You know that my sister moved to Fresno." Yes, the whole family. "Well, you know, the house is 2 miles from the house here." I said, "Yeah, I know. I've been there many times, you know, to Edith's house. Edith and Joe and the kids, the twins." And so he says, "Well, I have to go there every day," he says, "and check to be sure no one's broke into the house. And besides that, I have to water the lawn.
Mhm.
I just have to throw the sprinkler on." He said, "Please just drive out there with me, you know, because Tommy wants to see his mom a little bit longer."
I see.
And all this, wants to see his mom, and she wants to play with the kid, all this crap. I said, "Okay, but I do really want to stop back to Vegas before it gets dark, you know."
Mhm.
So we go out there, and he's watering the lawn, and he says, "Now I have to check the house. Come on." So then we go in the house, which is empty, no furniture, nothing in there. They've got it up for sale.
Mhm.
And check the bedrooms, check the bedrooms, check the bathroom. I mean, this ridiculous thing. And he says, "Well, there's nowhere to sit. Let's just sit on the floor." Well, why? He says, "Well, I just think, you know, I won't be seeing you anymore. So I'd just like to talk to you before you leave." So I sat on the floor. And he just starts in. And he said, "It didn't turn out like it would, but I wish it would." And I said, "You wish what would?" He said, "Well, I wish I would have gone ahead with getting married." And I said, "Listen, right now, nothing's changed." Nothing has changed. My children have to be brought up Jewish, right? But the main thing is that I'm upset with you that you never finished going to physical therapy school. And the only reason that you told me you took nursing was so you could go into physical therapy, which was the rule. You had to be an RN to go to physical therapy school. And I said, "And what are you doing? You're doing nothing. Is that going to be your life? You know, you're not going to go to school now?" "No," he said, "it's not necessary, you know, blah, blah, blah." Make a very long story short, he says, why can't we get married?" You want number one, you want number two, you want number three, you want all those reasons? And I told him, my children have to be brought up Jewish, You have to go to school, you know. You cannot take them to church, you know, and all this. You can't do this and that. That's it. You don't want to do that? I have to be sure. I am now 25 years old. I can't wait around for you to decide what you want to do because you're doing nothing. So he says, well, I really want to marry you. Well, I said, you know, to marry a person, you have to say, I want to marry you. Will you please marry me? If you can say that, I'll do that. And he said, well, my Uncle Si says the gypsies just put a broomstick out and hold it, and they jump over the broomstick, and that makes them married. Why can't we do that? This guy doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. And he says, and then you know another thing about it? When they want to get divorced, they jump backwards. I'm telling you, he had everything fixed in his head. I said, John, not until you do 3 things I ask you to do, that you must bring up my children Jewish. There's no ands, ifs, or buts, and it will not change. He said, yeah, I've been reading a lot about the Jewish religion. No, I can do it. I said, no, you have to promise to do it, not you're going to do it. He says, I promise you I will keep that promise. Okay. And then there was something else I said, and then the third one was, that you must go to physical therapy school. You know. And he says, well, why can't we really have a really great life? You know, I'm an RN, you're an RN. Instead of doing that, why don't we go and tour the whole country and go to a hospital, say, first we'll go to, maybe Utah or something, and we'll get a job for 1 month. And then and we'll see what's all in that area. Then we'll drive to the next county. And we can go all the way north, up in the summertime, and then we'll come down south in the wintertime. I said, you don't hear a thing I say. You don't hear a thing I say. Either you go and become a physical therapist or forget it. Other times you've always said that kids will be brought up Jewish. And number 3, you can't change your mind. You have to make it, And another thing is, you must say, will you marry me? And he says, I can't say that. Then I said, I can't marry you. This goes on. This is not a 2-minute conversation, sitting on the floor across from each other. I said, no. I said, you have to say, will you marry me? Or please marry me. But you have to say in that tone. Can I just say, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? I said, no. Doesn't work that way. Oh. Anyway, this went on for God knows how long. He went on and on how many ways he could say this without saying, will you marry me? No, that won't work there either. Finally, it finally got out and I said yes.
So he finally said it.
And what month was that?
That was in July.
No, in July.
Yeah, that was in July. We got married 6 weeks later.
Oh, so you canceled your whole trip.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
Oh, yeah. The school started in September. Now, not only did school start in September, I went with them up to UCLA. We took a day, and we went in, and they were starting physical therapy right away. It wasn't like it is now where you have to do all
went to Loma Linda for.
He did.
Huh?
Yeah, he did. He did go to Loma Linda.
What was
UCLA is where he had to get all the prereqs.
Oh.
He had to have all the prereqs. He never took algebra or geometry. Okay? He's got an AA degree. He's got an RN license. And they wouldn't take him at UCLA. So he says, what do I have to do to get in? He said, you have to take a year of algebra and a year of geometry. He says, if I do it, this was just like the first week of July. I went up with him, and he said, will you let me in then? And they said, yeah, but I don't know if we really are going to start that school then, but it looks like it's set. So he went back home. He went over to Santa Ana Junior College. He signed up for a year of algebra and a year of geometry in 6 weeks. He took 4 hours of algebra and 4 hours of geometry. And he did that whole thing in 6 weeks and came out with an A.
Yeah.
So then teachers wrote him and he went back up, and they said, okay, you can get in now. So we said, well, what's the deal? They said, well, you have to have special classes to get into the new PT program. So take UCLA, they said, we'll take you in as a senior, junior, senior, and you have to take 4 classes. And then your priority of the first ones that go to start at VA hospital in the program. So he goes and he takes all these classes in the summertime. And we go to UCLA, which then he has to take these classes to get into the next program. So in May, we thought that the class was going to start at the VA hospital, which is only 2 blocks away from UCLA, which was great. We lived across the street from the tennis courts of UCLA. And they canceled the program. And so we said...
And you're pregnant.
And I'm pregnant. So what he did was, somebody said, try to get in, what was her name that did the polio? Anyway, she had a hospital that you had to be a PT before you could do all this other crap stuff. And so we called up back there and they said, you're too late. Can't get into the program. You have to be completely with everything settled before you come, and we're starting on Monday. You can't do it. So then somebody told us they also have class at Loma Linda. Well, we didn't even know where Loma Linda was, but you might be able to get into that class, So we drove to Loma Linda. Man, when they found out that he was an RN and that he was not a Seventh-day Adventist, hallelujah. Because in order for Loma Linda to continue, you must have 2 people in the class who are not Seventh-day Adventists. Have you ever heard of such a thing? If they lose their government support.
Wow.
So they had one black guy who wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist, and then this other nut, John Browne. The 2 of them weren't Seventh-day Adventists and said, yeah, you can start in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we moved to Loma Linda.
For how many years?
2 years.
So that was, but you didn't move there till like after I was born.
Yeah, you were 6 weeks when we moved.
Yeah.
In 6 weeks, we, it was just rush. Find a place and do everything, and oh my God. But, and then he did, he always got A's. I think he got a couple B's once in his whole life. John was very, very bright. He could sit down and read a whole book on algebra, probably like you do, and remember. And he used to he would sit and Julie would be in the crib, and he would just pick up a book, on his class, and just read it. So here were the 2 outlaw people in Loma Linda. And so during his class, he would sneak into the orange grove and he would smoke. So one day,
You're not allowed to do that.
one day, one of the guys said, come on over here. He said, they're about ready to kick you out
Really, no smoking, huh?
because of no smoking. He says, you don't think anybody knows that you walk up in the orange grove and smoke and you come back with smoke all over your clothes?
Were you able to drink?
Huh?
Did you guys drink that year? Were you able to drink? When you lived in Garden Grove, when you lived in Loma Linda?
No, we never had
You
that.
just didn't drink, huh?
No.
Huh?
No, we didn't. We really found out later what they really do.
Yeah, but
They
when you're...
have cabins up in Big Bear, and they had sex parties up there.
Oh, God,
Wow.
good Lord.
Yeah.
Gotta
That was
release the
but
tension
everybody,
somehow.
that was not everybody went up there, but
Oh,
we
yeah.
heard it from John Rooker.
Some of them, yeah, of course not everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it
But-
was, that was quite,
Wild.
it was pretty
Wow.
wild.
All right, so that gets us up to most of what happened until the first year of marriage.
Yeah, that was the first
Let's
year.
do it.
Yeah, that's
Sonia,
good.
Barbara, that could be a movie.
Well, thank you, that's perfect.